Excelsior, everybody! What's up? Welcome once again, week after week, to my semi-weekly Geek podcast that I do from the comfort of my own couch and the comfort of my own apartment, roughly every week. And I say roughly because my work schedule is very unstable, to say the least. Therefore, I can't always exactly do it on the same day every single week. Therefore, there is no weekly consistency between these things. You know that, you don't have the luxury of knowing that on this specific day of the week, on this specific hour, there's going to be one of these podcasts. You just know that sometime eventually, over the course of 7 or 8 days, there's going to be one. And that's unfortunate. And, it sucks, but, I do have a job, you know. You kind of have to be a little bit more understanding on my part. I do have to sustain this apartment. These things, these lovely little toys don't buy themselves and put themselves on display for you all to see. So you kind of have to be a little bit more appreciative of that. Now, by the way, you may have noticed that I'm actually wearing my Black Panther t-shirt that I wore, that I got from Netflix. From Netflix? Wow! I really am tired, aren't I? I got this from Loot Crate, damn it, and I actually wore it recently on my, the video I did in memory of, the late great Stan the Manly, Excelsior, that I did about an hour after I heard the tragic news of his death. Well, I say tragic, but there's a bit of a longer story involved there. Let me just tell you, I don't know if I talked about this, but let me just tell you a little bit about how this story hit me. And the thing is, I just finished my my work day. I saw the most recent Doctor Who episode, The Demons of the Punjab. Beautiful episode, by the way. One of my favorites. We'll talk about that later. I got on the bus. I went back home. I fell asleep on the bus, as I usually do, because, a 12-hour shift is not something easy, especially if you will have to wake up at 6 a.m., and especially if you happen to do a very long and extensive podcast the night before. But yeah, I just fell asleep most of the way, and when I woke up, when the bus finally got to my city and around my house, I just woke up. I was barely conscious, shaking my head, trying to figure out what the hell am I doing with my life. And one of my friends who was sitting in the back seat behind me, he said, "Say, did you hear that Stanley died like 2 hours ago?" And I'm like, "What? Yeah, what did you say? What did you say?" Because, I heard what he said. It was very clear. You couldn't have made a more clear statement than that. It's just that, I was in denial. And I'm not gonna lie, I was in deep denial. And it was a very difficult time in general, because various political and security instabilities in the area. There was what we like to say, a little bit of a peak in as far as relations between the state of Israel and the Gaza Strip, and Gaza was sending rockets onto our cities as they do once every few months. I'm talking as if it's a random uncommon thing, or a random common thing. It isn't, but that's just how everything was at the time, and there was so much other stuff going on that I just really couldn't focus on it. And then I got off the bus with some friends. We went to get something to eat, and then I got another bit of confirmation, because during that time I was hoping against hope, something that Stan would have written in one of his earlier comic books. I was hoping against hope that it wasn't true, that the guy was just messing with me. He didn't have the face of someone who was messing with me, and to be honest, he is one of those guys that you can't always tell whether he's being truthful or not, but you could tell he was being honest. You can see the sadness in his face. And while I was waiting for my food to get made, I got a message on my phone from someone I know who's very much gotten her ear to the ground as far as news of celebrities dying. She's the one that actually texted me about the death of the unfortunate passing of Anton Yelchin a few years ago, and that was even before I even a big Star Trek fan. And yeah, that just hit me. But as soon as I heard the little ringtone of my phone, I had a feeling it was about Stan Lee, and I saw her name on the phone's screen, and I knew it was coming. I knew the news was coming. I opened the message, and it was actually she pretty much copy-pasted the entire article about his death from I believe it was either from a BBC news website or from the Huffington Post. It was definitely a British news site. But yeah, that was the actual article itself. And she followed that up with another message saying, "I feel your pain." And yeah, that hit me. And again, I just fell even deeper and deeper into the denial stage, because it's a natural thing. It's a very natural response. It's part of the I believe 5 or 6 stages of grief. The denial stage. I can't remember what any of the other ones are, but I believe that's the first one. So yeah, don't quote me on that. But at first, I just didn't want to accept it. I went back home. I saw the rest of the news and the headlines to confirm about it. And then I did my video, and I'm looking at the video right now, by the way. I literally took anything I could find that even remotely connects to Stan Lee and just put it on display on this couch over here. Obviously, there's the giant poster right behind me with many characters that Stan Lee created. I can see some of them now. The Hulk, I believe Annihilus also, Dormammu, Thor, that's Iceman, I believe Namor he didn't create, Wolverine definitely not, Iron Man, Doctor Strange, I think Black Widow, that's, well, you can't exactly see from up here, but Cyborg, definitely Uatu the Watcher, not sure if he did Kang the Conqueror. Moving on to the other side, Spider-Man, obviously, The Thing, the Black Panther. I believe he also created Nick Fury, I'm not sure. And Clea, obviously Galactus, obviously Odin, the All-Father. A lot of people don't know this, but he actually also created Groot as well. And obviously his favorite bar none character, which is right over here, the Silver Surfer. So I obviously there's a giant poster right behind me. Oh, obviously, and well, oh, hang on. Why is Daredevil not on this poster? That's weird. Anyway, well, I also took this little base for my X-Force Wolverine action figure, and I put it over here to symbolize the X-Men. I took, you can't see where I'm pointing, but there's a part of the hardcover book of this large Marvel book that I have in my possession. I put it over here. It's got the cover of the Incredible Hulk #1 on one side, the cover of The Amazing Spider-Man #1 on the other side, and in the middle there's a bunch of characters that were created by Stan. Thor, The Thing, Spider-Man, the Scarlet Witch, many of the people I've just mentioned. Thor, obviously. Over here I had Thor's hammer that I bought, and I was holding Captain America's shield. I was dressed up in Doctor Strange's cloak of levitation. You can't really see it in the video, because if you're looking at the video right now, you can't even see it because the mic is hiding it. But I'm also wearing the Black Panther shirt, as I mentioned. Also, I was wearing the Black Panther necklace, as well as... Oops, hold on. Yeah. This necklace. I was also wearing this, the Eye of Agamotto from the Doctor Strange movie. And over here I had my Hot Toys Baby Groot. And over here I had the Falcon Captain America figure that I bought a few months ago. Now, why did I actually have Groot over here? A lot of people don't know this, but back in the day, before Stan started focusing on his own characters, he was just working on whatever title his publisher at the time, Marvin Goodman, told him to. And one of the many titles that he worked on, he inadvertently created the planet in the Marvel Universe now called Planet X, home of the species known as Floral Colossus, which is the race that Groot is from. He didn't exactly create Groot himself, but he created the planet that Groot comes from. So yeah, that's a little bit of a interesting Marvel trivia that you probably didn't know, and you know now. But even then, there's still so many characters this guy was instrumental in creating. And we didn't even talk about the Inhumans. Probably because most of you only know the Inhumans from the TV show that sucked. But the Inhumans, the comic book at least, much like the Green Lantern, the Inhuman comics are awesome and amazing and multifaceted, and there's so much to explore in there. Much like the Green Lanterns, it's just the problem is most people only know these characters from either the Green Lantern movie or the Inhumans TV show that were just, yeah, not the best representation of these characters, which is why no one is really interested in them as of right now. But still, that all could change. I know DC's working on a Green Lantern Corps right now with one of the Green Lantern's biggest fan, Jeff Johns, who's also, by the way, running a lot of things in DC. So that is on the way to get fixed. But no idea what the Inhumans, what their fate is. And hold on, let me just give me a second. I wasn't prepared for this, but I wasn't planning on doing this. But I guess I should just look up certain things. Hold on. Let's see here. I'm not gonna give you a full list, but I'm gonna go and try to give you a list of Stan Lee's most notable characters. Hold on. Never mind. Alright, let's see. Spider-Man, Hulk, Juggernaut, Black Widow, Iron Man, Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch, Doctor Strange, Galactus, Groot, as mentioned, Mary Jane, Black Panther, Loki, Hawkeye. Oh yeah, I forgot about Hawkeye. Punisher. Well, I didn't know he created Punisher. I thought that was after he was done working on Spider-Man. Oh, okay, that's interesting. Silver Surfer, Dr. Octopus, Gwen Stacy, Kingpin, Red Skull. He created Red Skull? Golly. Get it? Golly. Doctor Doom, his favorite Marvel villain. The Living Tribunal. One of the most iconic Doctor Strange issues of all time. Yes, he did create Nick Fury, Professor Xavier, Dormammu, J. Jonah Jameson, ladies and gentlemen, Magneto, Harry Osborn. Yeah, I forgot about that because there was a switch up in the artists at the time. Wow. Wasp, Quicksilver, Thor, Mysterio, my personal favorite Spider-Man villain, Uatu the Watcher, Hela, Adam Warlock, Shocker, Ben Parker, Jean Grey, obviously, Daredevil, Man-Thing. Man-Thing? Okay, wow. Okay, Pepper Potts, Flunky Flashman. No idea who that is. Vision, Yondu, Ronan, Peggy Carter. He was more involved in Captain America than I thought. Captain Marvel. Didn't know that. Norman Osborn, Fing Fang Foom. Wow. That's a shocker even to me. Sam Wilson, obviously, the Falcon. Hank Pym, Ant-Man, obviously, the original Ant-Man. And Mr. Fantastic. And that's still just the tip of the iceberg. I don't think it mentions anything about the Human Torch, the second one from the Fantastic Four, or the Invisible Woman. It doesn't say the Thing, but we've already mentioned him previously. He created basically a large majority of the Spider-Man villains, a large majority of the X-Men villains, the Avengers villains. I mean, just the Hulk. He created a lot of his villains, Iron Man villains. Yeah, he was a very, very influential figure. And it's sad to see him go. And continuing on with the story, after I did my video, again, I just regressed completely back into the denial stage. I was not ready to accept that Stan Lee has passed away. I just wasn't. I was like, I was not having it. I tried to distract myself. I kept myself busy with work and the videos, and I went to see the advanced screening of Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald, which we'll talk about later. And yeah, I just filled my head with everything else I could think of except Stan himself. And as I was working on my review for Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald, while I was editing it, and while I was waiting for certain things to download, because my internet was just excruciatingly slow that night, I said to myself, well, I've got some time, let's just see some things on the YouTubes. And there's this really nice guy, nice channel. He takes a bunch of memes and artworks and fan arts and just puts them all together into just one long video. Really just, really nice, super nice dude. He does like a lot of superhero stuff, a lot of Pokemon stuff, all kinds of fun stuff, you know. A lot of Marvel versus DC stuff. Not to antagonize anyone. It's just for fun, for laughs. You know, how superheroes would look like if they were older, how Pokemon would look like if they were real people, stuff like that. Really nice. And his latest video at the time that I browsed the YouTubes, I noticed he uploaded this little 9-minute video of just Stan Lee memes and artworks that would make you cry. I was like, oh, okay, let's watch that. And there was some really, really nice artwork in there. I mean, they used the same artwork that they used a few months ago for the passing of Steve Ditko, which is Spider-Man standing on top of a tombstone, holding his face like this and crying, and the tombstone says Stan Lee. Obviously, previously it said Steve Ditko, And I believe in the original picture, because it is a picture taken from one of the panels of the comics. I believe it's either Gwen Stacy or Ben Parker. I'm not sure, but that was nice. There was a nice little art of Thor sort of escorting him to Valhalla, saying, "What do you think?" And Stan says, "Well, it's more beautiful than I could have imagined." Something like that. A lot of just really nice looking stuff of all the Marvel characters just hugging him in a group hug. There was some of them that depicted him as this big grandfather character, and all the Marvel characters are little mini grandchildren. A lot of him sitting on a throne with all the Marvel characters kneeling before him. A lot of ones portraying him as the god of the Marvel universe, because in many ways that's what he is. A lot of just really heartbreaking, emotional stuff of like him hugging Spider-Man, and Spider-Man just saying, "I don't want you to go," and Stan Lee's just slowly turning to dust, like in Infinity War. A lot of dusting stuff, like Stan Lee sitting writing something or drawing something, and then suddenly he notices that he's turning into dust, so he just puts down the pencil and fades away. There was even one where Thanos was looking at Stan Lee starting to fade away, and he was like, "I wanted to erase half the universe, not all of it." I'm really giving it all away, aren't I? So anyway, I kept watching and watching, picture after picture after picture after picture. I can't even remember how many of them. It was about a 9-minute video and about 4 seconds for each picture. And as I was watching it, that's when the penny drops, and that's when it punched me in the face and the gut and everywhere else that's important. And that's when the realization finally settled, that I accepted that Stan Lee is no longer with us. And I started crying. That was the first time I cried since, I believe, John Schnapp passed away a few months ago. First time I was legit crying. I was bawling in tears, and it was hard. It was hard to focus. I just, and it was in the dead of night. I didn't know what to do with myself, but yeah. If you're watching this, if you're still watching me talking about Stan Lee, even though we've been at this for 23 minutes now, if you're still watching this video, this podcast, that I'm allowing myself to go to the more emotional side of myself, because people don't know this about myself, about me. I'm just a big old softy. I mean, I try to look funny and happy and everything's okay and blah 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 blah, but really I'm just as spineless as a jellyfish, my friends. I am a very emotionally weak man. I don't often show this, but I am, and I'm being honest with you by saying this, because I want you guys to know this about me and maybe even appreciate me a little bit more, hopefully. But yeah, when that realization finally settled, I was a puddle of tears on the ground. And if you're still watching this, as I started to say, whatever you do, don't fall back into this denial stage that I was at first, because it will consume you from the inside. It will destroy you emotionally and in any other way you can think of. Please, I'm not even saying this for myself. I'm saying this for you guys. If you're experiencing, I'm not just talking about Stan Lee. If you've experienced a death of someone you know, God forbid, or someone you love, then don't let that event pass you by unnoticed. Don't fall back into denial. Just learn to accept it and move on. And don't try to fall back on the loss that you've experienced, but instead try to focus more on remembering the legacy of whoever it is you've lost, and whoever it is was important to you, which is exactly the same thing I'm going to do now with Stan. I'm not going to keep being depressed over this, even though I am very much heartbroken. Instead of just continuing to fall back on the sadness of the event, I'm going to just spend every day, week, month, I don't know how long this phase is going to last, but I'm going to just focus more on honoring the legacy that this man, this wonderful, wonderful man, has left us, and all the joy that he brought to all our lives, and the joy that he had in his life. Most of it, anyway. And the guy was 95. I mean, what else can you expect? A lot of people don't get to that age, and the fact that not only he got to live that long, but the fact that he got to live long enough to see the empire that he literally created with his own two hands, writing on a typewriter or with a pen and paper. The fact that he got to see it not only just become the most popular characters in comics, not only did he get to see other people being inspired by his characters, the fact that he got to see these characters become live-action movie characters and basically the most prominent genre in the world right now. I mean, what else can a man ask for in his life? I could ask for nothing more than for whenever I finally go, whenever that happens, I can ask for nothing more than to just be remembered and honored by the people that I hope are watching this video right now, however many years in the future that you are actually sitting down and watching this, if you are. So, thank you, Stan. Excelsior! That's my Stan Lee impersonation, by the way. Excelsior! And I believe, by the way, he also said it in a Comic-Con once. Someone asked him, I don't know if he asked him straight up, or if it was a little more subtle, but he asked sort of, hey, you know, you're not quite as young as you used to be. Aren't you afraid that this day might come? I'm probably making it sound horrible, but it wasn't exactly like this. I'm just sort of paraphrasing, but he said, well, Stan, in his usual way, the only thing he had to say about it was, well, I had a good run. And he did. He had a wonderful and excellent run. And we couldn't be more grateful for it. So, now that we've talked almost a full half an hour of this podcast about Stan Lee, and believe me, the man deserved so much more, but I want to move on to some other stuff. So I got to see Fantastic Beasts, the Crimes of Grindelwald. Well, it wasn't actually this week from a certain point of view. It was last week. It was on Wednesday. I actually took a day off from work to go see it, which is funny because they did the same thing for Avengers Infinity War. Apparently, I've been working this job for 3 years now, and the only 2 times that I've taken a day off was to go see a movie. Technically, it was 3 times, actually, now that I think about it, because, so I went to see Fantastic Beasts on Wednesday, as I mentioned. Earlier the year, it was still this year, I took a day off to go see Avengers Infinity War. 3 times, by the way. And if we're going even further back to last year, when I was still relatively new at that job, I didn't exactly take a day off. It was a sick day. That's why I didn't include it. But yeah, it was Purim, the what I like to say Jewish Halloween, even though Purim came like centuries before Halloween was even a concept. But it's the day where we all dress up in silly costumes and go around eating candy until we all get fat and woozy and barf everything out. But yeah, I dressed up as Doctor Strange for Purim 2017. Yeah, I actually took a sick day because Purim is right around the sort of end of winter and almost the beginning of spring. And I personally, I know a lot of people are also like this, but I personally get really sick during that time. So I got really, really sick that time. So I didn't really want it to because I'm sort of kind of married to my work. I still am, but my parents kind of forced me to take a day off, and I did. That was, by the way, a few days before I actually moved here. We were still. I remember none of these things that you can't even see right now from my perspective. None of these things were here. This couch wasn't even here, and we were still just in the process of negotiating a deal for me to move here. This whole apartment was empty. There was nothing here except for the poster that used to be over here, the Star Wars Rogue One, the Rogue One and Star Wars story poster, and the Doctor Strange poster that was over there, and that table that's sitting right over there. And instead of this couch, we had a bunch of chairs. And we were still in the final days or weeks of finalizing the deal for me to move in here. And that was actually the day that I decided to put the sign on the entrance to my house, the one with all the Marvel characters and the DC characters standing together. And I went dressed up as Doctor Strange for Purim. It was a very lovely Purim, by the way. And aside from being so itchy, I just get really nervous whenever I'm sitting in front of a camera for so long. That's why you never really see it in my videos, because I try to edit it out. A little bit of movie magic there. But I went dressed up as Doctor Strange to the movie theater because there was a big little shindig happening over there. And that's when I went to see Kong Skull Island. And speaking of Kong Skull Island, maybe I should just discuss this first, because it's a very nice segue. This week, finally, production and filming has begun on Godzilla vs. King Kong, the next movie in the legendary Monsters franchise. I believe that's what they're calling it. So yeah, it's the Warner Brothers sort of second shared cinematic universe. Obviously, the first one is the DC cinematic universe, DCEU, whatever it is they're deciding to call it this week. But the second one, the one that apparently seems to be a little bit more successful at this point, is this giant kaiju monster universe that started in 2014 with the new Godzilla movie, and followed it up in 2016 with Kong Skull Island, and the next installment of that franchise is going to be next year with Godzilla King of the Monsters, followed by the next installment, Godzilla vs. King Kong, in 2021 or maybe 2020. I'm not sure, but we've got all that to come. That's very exciting to me. I've never been much of a fan of either Godzilla or King Kong, but these new movies have sort of reinvigorated my, kind of started me off on this little journey, and now I'm actually very excited to see these movies. I'm not sure if I'll ever watch the old original King Kong movies, not because they're old and they're mostly stop motion, Not because they're all in Japanese, mostly, but there are just so many of them. Godzilla, by the way, people don't know this. Godzilla, put this into perspective, alright? Godzilla has the most movies out of any other movie franchise in history. More than James Bond and more than Marvel. Alright? Marvel, the Marvel Cinematic Universe at least, as it stands right now, has 20 movies. Get it? 20, 10, and another 10. With Captain Marvel, the upcoming Captain Marvel being its 21st, Avengers 4 22nd, and Spider-Man Far From Home, its 23rd movie in the franchise. James Bond, right now, currently, hold on, I want to check this because I always get this wrong. But I believe James Bond has currently 26. Yeah, currently it has 26 movies in it. Now, why am I saying 26? Well, most people think that there are 24 movies in the James Bond series. And that is true to a point. The thing is, the James Bond franchise has this sort of series of movies called the Eon series, which is a bunch of movies produced by, or rather distributed, I'm not sure, by Eon as a production company or distributor company, whichever one. And basically, that's the one where you're probably most familiar with, where it has all these multiple different Bonds that change once every few years. So, as of right now, Daniel Craig has 4 Bond movies. So does Pierce Brosnan. Roger Moore has 7. Sean Connery has 6. Timothy Dalton has 2. And George Lazenby has just 1. And there are also 2 movies that are outside the Eon series, outside of the canon, if you will, which are Casino Royale, the original, and Never Say Never Again, which I believe that's the one they brought Sean Connery back for. I'm not sure. But, so yeah, James Bond has 26 movies, with the one that's being currently in development. I don't know if it's ever going to happen, by the way, but they're currently developing another movie which they're currently at this point calling Bond 25. Even though now we all are now the wiser, we know that it's the 27th movie in the franchise. Godzilla, put this into perspective, right now, as it stands, has 31 movies, including the 2014 reboot and the 1995 attempt at a reboot. So Godzilla King of the Monsters is going to be the 32nd movie in the franchise. Not to worry though, I'm perfectly sure that Marvel can surpass both these franchises in the coming future. But yeah. So why am I talking about Godzilla? Oh yeah, right. I almost lost my way there. Godzilla vs. King Kong has started production recently this week, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is just a total facepalm moment. Just, I've seen some people online, because you know, whenever you get news of any kind, there's always going to be a bunch of trolls crawling out of their little hideout just to say negative things, because that's what they do. They've got nothing better to do with their life. So I saw a bunch of people complaining and angry at Warner Brothers and their Legendary Pictures, saying, "Oh, now they spoiled the ending for Godzilla 2. Now we know Godzilla doesn't die at the end." Are you kidding kidding me? Are you effing kidding me? They said years ago that this whole franchise is setting up for a confrontation between Kong and Godzilla to eventually clash in 2020 or 2021. And now you're suddenly surprised that Godzilla's gonna survive? First of all, the movie's freaking called Godzilla King of the Monsters. Okay? Second, do you really think they're gonna kill Godzilla in his own movie? Seriously. If Kong and Godzilla were to fight in King Kong versus Godzilla, you could make the argument that Godzilla dies in that movie. But they're not gonna kill Godzilla in his own movie! Especially not the second one, which is planning to be this whole shared interconnected franchise. It's ludicrous to me. Now, I know I'm just making a giant kaiju out of a fly, but yeah, it's just the silly things that people say online sometimes boggles the mind. I mean, I don't even know where people come up with these nonsenses. Oh boy. What else was I going to say? Oh yeah. So yeah. Kong versus Godzilla. Super looking forward to that. Very also looking forward for Godzilla King of the Monsters. Sounds very exciting. Thing is, we're probably already familiar with the plot of whatever Godzilla versus King Kong is going to be. There's going to be some major event, pitting the two biggest titans in human history together. Godzilla versus King Kong. They're going to run up to each other very slowly, or at least Godzilla is, because he walks very slowly. Kong is a little more fast and agile. And they're going to fight. They're going to destroy some cities. And then they're going to find out that both their mothers are named Martha. And then some random doomsday character is going to show up. And they're both going to have to team up and do a huge fist bump, destroying a city block in the process. And they're going to fight whatever threat is going to be. Now, of course, they mentioned the Martha word, the M word. It's pretty similar to the plot of Batman vs. Superman, where, you know, they were set up to clash. They found out that both their moms are named Martha by accident, and they went off to fight Doomsday. Why am I bringing that up, though? By the way, wouldn't it be fun if Godzilla and King Kong both will find out that they're friends with Mothra? Get it? Yeah, I'm terrible, I know that, but here's a little sort of tinfoil hat prediction that I'm formulating in my mind right now. I actually did it a few days ago, but I'm going to share it right now because, yeah, usually you have these wild, insane, out-of-this-world theories that I'm just too stupid to actually make a video about because I'm afraid I'm going to get laughed at, but I'm making this one now because, yeah, you guys are probably not going to believe me right now, but about a year ago, or even more than a year ago, I never said this to anyone, by the way, but I had a feeling. I had this weird tingling sensation that Kylo Ren was going to kill Snoke in The Last Jedi. Surprise, surprise! Long and behold, he actually did kill Snoke. At first I thought the wildest theory that anyone could possibly formulate is that Snoke was going to die. Then I thought to myself, what if Kylo Ren actually kills him? Boop! That's what happened. And when I saw that actually happen on screen, I was shocked beyond my mind. Then a few months later, I kind of caught myself saying, hey, wait a minute. You know what would be an interesting thing? What if Avengers Infinity War ends with Thanos getting all... Sorry about that. I had a phone call, but not to worry, I've turned my phone off, and we won't be having any more distractions moving forward. Funny how people tend to call you close to midnight, but hey. So what exactly was I saying before I was so rudely interrupted? I said to myself a while ago, wouldn't it be the most craziest, wildest, out of this world thing if Avengers Infinity War ends with Thanos acquiring all 6 Infinity Stones, sorry. The move between comics and movies is confusing sometimes. If he has all the Infinity Stones on the gauntlet, and the movie literally ends with him snapping his fingers. That's what I thought. It was a random thought. I didn't think it was going to happen. I assumed that the movie's going to end with him getting all of the stones. Then a thing happens, and they manage to remove the gauntlet from his hand. Yeah, it turns out I was wrong and right at the same time. Because the Russo brothers actually went with a bold ending. They decided to end it on a bit of a downer cliffhanger. You can call it that way. And yeah, Thanos won. It did actually end with a snap. Now, I thought it was going to end with a snap, and the screen turns to white, and that's how the movie ends. I mean, and we have no idea what happens next. But that sort of happened. Everything went to white, and we see that wonderful scene with Thanos and young Gamora. But then, the real kicker, people just turning to dust. By the way, I've watched the movie again 2 days ago. That was my 6th time. I saw it 5 times in the theater. 5 times in the theater, and I saw it once not in the theater, which was 2 days ago, and it broke me again seeing it again. I think that was literally the first time I actually legit cried at the movie. I saw it 5 times in the theater and didn't really. I mean, there was so much going on that I didn't really cry, but this time around, when Spider-Man dies, I mean, spoiler alert, by the way, Spider-Man dies, but again, like I said with the Godzilla thing, they didn't kill him in his own movie. They killed him in an Avengers movie. Of course he will be back, but that's neither here nor there. But, and by the way, I'm starting to think that the reason why Marvel has killed so many of their characters and brought them back later was specifically to prepare us for the eventuality that half the universe is going to die and then come back in some way, shape, or form. I mean, they killed Captain America in his first movie and brought him back. They killed Thor in his first movie and brought him back. They killed Loki twice and he came back. They killed Bucky and he came back as the Winter Soldier. They killed Black Panther in his own movie and brought him back. The list just goes on and on. It's pretty pointless to talk about it at this point. The only true characters that have actually really and truly died are Quicksilver, Yondu, and to a smaller extent, the Ancient One from Doctor Strange. Because if you've read the Doctor Strange comics and you're familiar with the history and the legacy of that character, the Ancient One, you know exactly what happens with the Ancient One after he, because in the comics it's a man, you know exactly what happens after he dies. So I wouldn't exactly necessarily call it a death, but yeah, I'm starting to really think that the reason for all of the Marvel fake deaths, as people are usually calling these things, I'm starting to think that all of these things were in place specifically so that when Infinity War happens, we'd be emotionally prepared for that. So, Oh yeah, now I finally remember why I started talking about this in the first place. So I had this wild theory about Snoke dying, and I said nothing. I had the wild theory about the snap, said nothing. This time, I'm putting it on record. I don't even care if nobody watches this video, because probably no one ever will, but I'm making my tinfoil hat prediction about Godzilla King of the Monsters post-credit scene. Okay? Monarch, which is obviously if you've watched the movies, it's the human company that tracks down these mythical creatures of legend, like King Kong, like Godzilla, like Mothra, Rodan, King Ghidorah, all these different creatures. They're the company that tracks them down. My prediction is some higher up over at Monarch sees the danger that Godzilla poses, especially once he takes down. I don't know if he's gonna fight Mothra, because from what I know, Godzilla and Mothra are kind of buddies. Maybe he's gonna fight Batra, Mothra's evil brother, or Rodan, or even King Ghidorah, because I believe King Ghidorah was in the trailer. But after seeing the massive threat to humanity that Godzilla poses, and possibly King Kong, some of the higher-ups over at Monarch is gonna begin production on Mechagodzilla, which, if you've seen any of the Toho Films Godzilla movies, Mechagodzilla is basically, as it says, it's a giant robot version of Godzilla that is so powerful it took the combined might of both Godzilla, King Kong, and I believe also Mothra to take it down. So I believe, what I think, my wild prediction is that the movie's going to end with a post-credit scene, like, by the way, in Kong Skull Island, because Kong Skull Island did end up with a post-credit scene that set up Godzilla King of the Monsters. It showed Tom Hiddleston and Brie Larson's characters at Monarch watching a slideshow of different characters that, if you're a fan of these kaiju movies, you recognize them as Mothra, Rodan, Ghidorah, Godzilla, and everyone else. And so that was a setup for that movie. I believe what is going to happen is we're going to see a tease of Mechagodzilla at the end of Godzilla King of the Monsters, so that in Godzilla vs. King Kong, what's going to happen eventually is King Kong and Godzilla are going to fight. Eventually Mechagodzilla is going to show up, and they're both going to realize that this new threat is bigger than both of them, physically and literally. And it's going to take the combined might of both of these giant titans of kaiju history to take this guy down. And wouldn't it be an interesting twist to have... You've got these two giant monsters who could destroy the world if they wanted to. And it was pretty much set up in the first Godzilla movie that Godzilla doesn't really want to destroy anybody. He's the protector of the Earth. When those Mutos, whatever their name was, the Mutos, whatever their names were, in the first Godzilla movie, whenever these two showed up and started, wrecking shop, Godzilla showed up, rose up out of the oceans, and beat the shit out of them. And then, when the danger was over, he just casually crawled back into whatever depth he lives in. So I'm assuming that the same. And by the way, also in Kong Skull Island, Kong is not the bad guy. People always have assumed that King Kong was the bad guy in the original King Kong movies. He wasn't. He was just a misunderstood creature who was actually the protector of his island. And in Kong Skull Island, the movie, the main antagonists were the skull crawlers. These giant, weird lizard things with skulls for heads. And King Kong basically needed to protect the indigenous people of the island from these creatures. And I believe the same thing is going to happen with King Kong versus Godzilla. Each one is going to think the other one is a threat to humanity, and they're going to clash. Eventually, Godzilla is going to show up, and these two guys are going to go, well, hey, wait a minute. We've spent all this time protecting these little insects who happen to share this planet with us from the bigger threats to their lives, while all the time these guys have been a threat all along. And then Godzilla and King Kong would have both team up and take down Godzilla. And wouldn't it be a fun twist if these two creatures that have defended humanity for generations, for centuries, for millennia, suddenly turn on the humans they were supposedly sworn to protect? Just try to think about that when you go to see Godzilla King of the Monsters, if you will. We've got about 10 minutes left, so I really wanted to talk about Fantastic Beasts and the Crimes of Grindelwald. I liked it. I really liked it. I just got really sidetracked with the whole Godzilla thing, because that was a very interesting discussion, by the way. Why am I bringing up the Fantastic Beasts stuff? Again, by the way, on a short notice, again, another classic facepalm moment, by the way. Hold on. So, as you know, I'm reading Aquaman right now. And by the way, you guys can't see this, but it's the cover of Aquaman Rebirth number 6 with Aquaman fight. Whoops, hold on. There's an ad. Aquaman versus Superman. You guys still can't see it, but whatever. I'm taking this wherever I go. I read it, and me and my friend, the one who actually scored the tickets to the advanced screening of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and Fantastic Beasts and the Crimes of Grindelwald. Again, the books, the comics is really confusing with the titles. My friend who scored the tickets, we saw the trailer for Aquaman together in the theater, and during the break of the movie, I showed him. He went to get some more popcorn. I started reading more about Aquaman, and then when he came back, I was like, "Hey, look, it's Aquaman!" And he was like, and again, another total facepalm moment. He was like, "That's not Aquaman. Aquaman isn't blonde." For years, the second most recognizable thing about Aquaman, well, the first and probably the most recognizable thing about Aquaman, and the main thing that made him the butt of everybody's jokes was that he talks to fish. By the way, that is completely untrue. And if you actually take the time and read the comics like a normal person, you know that Aquaman doesn't actually talk to fish. He's communicating through telepathy. Fish don't talk. They aren't smart enough. They don't have the brain capacity to talk. So just take that out of your head immediately and remove that from your lexicon. And the second main thing that made a lot of people kind of skeptical about Aquaman and laugh at him was that he was blonde. There was actually an entire storyline in the comics for years explaining why he was blonde. That blonde hair was considered a curse in Atlantis. That's why they banished him from Atlantis to die. They left him to die on Mercy Reef. And there's a whole storyline in there that I'm not going to spoil if you haven't read it. The 90s run on Aquaman. By the way, 90s Aquaman, one of the best comic book runs in history. I mean, they literally took this character who was a joke by any other name and made him into just a badass. He was the biggest badass around, even more than Batman. And I can't believe I'm actually saying this, but yeah, Aquaman, total badass. And if you want to familiarize yourself a little bit more with the Jason Momoa version of Aquaman, that's the version of Aquaman that we're going to get in the upcoming Aquaman movie, you should probably read the 90s Aquaman. First of all, the long hair and the beard. Yeah, that was 90s Aquaman all around. He even lost his hand and replaced it with a harpoon. There are so many good things about the 90s run on Aquaman that you should probably get on if you're excited for the Aquaman movie. And you actually read this thing and you're just in your mind. I mean, you're saying to yourself, "Wow, it's Black Panther underwater." It literally is. I mean, the Black Panther, especially the movie, drew a lot of their inspiration from the 90s Aquaman, which is a shocker. So, make sure to look out for that. As far as Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald, yeah, I liked it. I liked it a lot. Funny thing is, this woman in the comment section of my before and after video. I'm not going to mention her name, by the way, so don't expect me to do that. But she wrote in the comments, beautiful woman, by the way, but just maybe not the best at articulating herself through words. But she basically just said, "Fine, you liked it. Put that in the title next time." I was like, why would I put it in the title? The whole point of the before and after videos is to show you my honest reactions to a movie before I see it, while I'm in the theater, and after I come out of it. So why would I put the name of... Why would I say that in the video? And she just wrote down to me and said... she said, "I had to watch you for 3 minutes to find that out. It'll be easier next time if you write it in the title. And I saw you just with the shaking your camera, aka walking with it." And I'm like, "Miss," because obviously I can't say dude, "Miss, you do realize that the whole point is waiting with the anticipation to see if I liked it or not. That's just part of the thing." Anyway, that sometimes comments just drive me insane. I mean, the stuff people are writing these days. Sheesh. Anyway, yeah, me and her are really not on good terms right now, and frankly, I really don't care that much. She's probably never gonna comment on any of my videos ever again, and fine, never mind. So, I believe I think I've said enough. But funny, there's so many other things I wanted to talk about. Just I think the Godzilla thing took a lot of time off my schedule. I wanted to have a much deeper talk about the Fantastic Beasts thing, but I guess I'm gonna do it in a vlog, or maybe even next week. Maybe I should just do it next week, yeah, because there's a pretty big spoiler in the movie that I don't want anyone to know yet, because I don't know if people have gotten a chance to see it yet, so I'm gonna reserve the right to talk about it as of this point, and I'll talk about it in my next video. And another thing I wanted to talk about in this video that I simply don't have the time for, because first of all, the Godzilla discussion just kind of threw me off, and also because the majority of this video was probably rightfully so dedicated to Stan Lee, as it should have been. But I really want to talk about Doctor Who right now. By the way, I'm still on my Doctor Who train. Hold on. You guys probably can't see this, but I'm audiobling another Doctor Who novel, Molten Heart. Really nice, fun book, by the way. Already I love it more than I like it more than I liked the previous one, The Good Doctor, which I already did a review for that 3 people watched. So, just saying. I really want to talk about Doctor Who, and it's no secret that there has been a bit of negativity towards the show recently, but that's neither here nor there. I wanted to talk about it this week. Unfortunately, it looks as though we're going to have to talk about it next week because we've officially ran out of time. We're already over an hour, and yeah, that phone call in the middle of the show, in the middle of the podcast, didn't really help much. I really got to learn to turn this stupid thing off, even if I'm recording at midnight. So yeah. So wow, we covered a lot of ground today. Surprisingly, Stan Lee, an unexpected detour for Godzilla, and a little bit about Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald, and Aquaman. So yeah, all good things, guys. Remember, people. Just always be respectful in the comments. Don't always think before you write something, and most importantly, guys, no matter how hard things get, with the passing of Stan Lee and the passing of any other someone of importance to you in your life, always remember to have a smile on your face. Never let it get to you too much. Always accept it before it's too late. Don't fall back into denial like I did, because it's not good for the soul. It's not healthy. It's not healthy for you. And what else can I say other than Excelsior? You know, I guess one person can make a difference. Enough said. Hello again, everybody. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to my channel, where I do all kinds of weird stuff like showcase all these things, trailer reactions, movie reviews, all kinds of fun stuff. So, until next time, I'll see you guys next time.